What is up? What is up? Kevin, good to see you, man. You're muted. Can't unmute. There.
Oh, that's weird.
There we go.
Good to see you, brother. How was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, welcome in. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
How was your vacation? Your Thanksgiving?
No, not too bad. It was pretty somewhat uneventful. I did go to kind of last minute. We decided to go hike Big Bend again. We did that last Thanksgiving, and we decided to do it again. And
Nice.
That was kind of exhausting, but we got to visit Marfa again and decided I don't need to go back there ever again.
Very nice. I was in Canada doing things Canadians do, I guess, being cold for sure. So that's what I was doing. I gave a talk up there. It was quite a bit of fun.
Nice. Is that your first time up there? You like it?
No, I got invited back. I had been up there a couple of years ago, so they invited me back to talk. So anyway, let us know where you are tuning in from. We got a lot to get to today. Myself and Kevin got a lot to get to. Kevin, we are going to go through the Fannie Mae Trump deal that might be happening. So we'll go through that. We have quite a bit to go through as well with, let's see, what else we got? We have that. We got predicting the market. There's Realtor.com just put out their predictions for 2025. So we're going to go through that and some other things. So let's get started right here. What's up, brother Ted? Good to see you. The guy on the right is using America's best 480 resolution camera. It could be my Wi-Fi today. And then my dad says, good morning, son. I love it. Awesome. Good to see you, Dad. All right, let's get to the first article. So there is a information out that Trump may get rid of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac being part of the government's possession, right? So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac used to be private, right? And so there's talk about taking this and making it private again. So big changes could be coming for the mortgage market, and they could hit closer to home than you think. President Trump is revisiting efforts to privatize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, two mortgage giants that currently back 70% of the U.S. home loans. While privatization could transform base companies, the potential cost to borrowers is significant. Experts like economist Mark Zandi warn it could increase annual mortgage costs from $1,800 to $2,800 for typical homeowners, with lower income families feeling the pinch the most. But why does this matter? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac don't issue loans themselves. Instead, they buy mortgages from other lenders, package them into securities, and then sold to investors. This keeps the mortgage market steady and ensures affordable loan rates. Privatization could disrupt this system, making mortgage riskier for investors and more expensive to you. With mortgage rates already hovering around 7%, home affordability under pressure, this move could add fuel to the fire. As experts pull it, the stakes are as they put it, stakes are very, very high. Could a compromise like charging a fee for government guarantees strike the balance between privatization and stability? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear, the housing market could face some big changes with this in the future. How do you think privatizing this would affect the housing market? And that's what we're going to go over here. Overall, what do you think, Kevin, about this potential? I mean, they tried to do it back in 2020 or before 2020. So what's your overall thoughts on this now?
Well, I mean, I've had lots of thoughts over the years on, hold on, let me see if I can get my camera to focus on me a little bit better. Oh, what's going on? Over privatizing a lot of different industries. I think healthcare was one of those that could have made a lot of sense, in the way that it was before, with more government-centric, healthcare control. I don't like it. I I don't think it provided the response that people were going to expect in terms of coverage and cost. In fact, costs just went up drastically after that, and for some reason, really stuck with that. So that's, there's parts of it that I don't understand the benefits of, and therefore I probably couldn't speak on very well. But what I can say is that when the government has full control over something that is generally managed by private entities anyway, I think it just blurs the lines in a way that is very confusing. So I understand why they do it. Having the government-backed Fannie and Freddie Mac mortgages helps control the market a little bit more, and just so that if you privatize it, they would have control over something that has a major impact on our entire economy. So the challenge would be, if it does get privatized out of government hands, how do you keep that in check without them just pursuing the almighty dollar? And I think that's the big question. I have other thoughts on that, but what do you think?
I mean, look, look, before 2008, it wasn't private, right? It was part of, it was its own thing. Look, there's a lot of investors that are happy about this. Obviously, some investors close to Trump are happy about this potentially happening. I don't think it's going to end up happening. I think there's so many other things that are a bigger worry right now that I don't think that this is something that's just going to happen. And the other thing too is right now we all hear like, okay, this is going to happen, and everybody gets so just up in arms over any news that comes out of the Trump camp right now. So number one, I don't necessarily think this is going to be a priority as of right now. It could change things, but look, if they did do it, there are some pros and cons. I think the pros are that, it could create different loan types, because the thing is right now, when the things have to be formed into Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you have to fit these loan limits. So they could change the loan limits. So it could open it up to other people that maybe couldn't get approved right now. Mm-hmm. Whereas when it's backed by the government, then, you have to fall in line. So, I mean, I think there's pros and cons. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to stay where it is for now. I don't think that there's a big need, especially with the housing market where it is right now.
I mean, I think that if you're looking to change the way that the housing market, is right now, in terms of like getting a better response from people in terms of pricing and availability and all that, mortgage rates coming down, I think that there are other levers that can be pulled that are way more important than something like privatizing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac right now. The things I could think of, the majority of the things I can think of would be, keeping conglomerate investors out of the market for a while, limiting the percentage of investment that they can make in private housing to let the housing prices come down so that people can afford to buy houses again. I think that's the key. Like during 2021, I think, what was it in some markets? I don't know if it's overall in the US. I'm probably misquoting the stat, but I know in some of the major housing markets that investment sales, so like BlackRock and other major funds, was like 30% of the entire sales. So if you think about it, if a third of the sales are going to an investment, that's just unnaturally driving the price up for the housing. So, hey, I'd love to have my investors know that the price of the home that they bought previously is going to increase over years. But the reality is it has to be sustainable. I'd rather have sustainable growth of an investment than these huge spikes in volatility and coming back down again and not knowing where it is, because it doesn't do any good. It doesn't do us any good as real estate agents and brokers, and it doesn't do the investors any good. It doesn't do the homeowners any good, and it doesn't do home buyers any good. So anything that we can do to approach stability right now, I think, is the thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, I just don't think that there's enough, I think there's more pressing things to worry about right now than taking this from the government and putting it back private. I think there's pros and cons either way. I just don't think it's something that's going to happen If anything, it'll probably happen 2 years from now. I mean, look, we're about to go over the 2025, 2026 markets. So let's say things change over the next 2 years. Is it something that can be done in the next 4 years or might be done in the next 4 years? Yes. I don't think it's something that's going to happen in 25. I don't think it's going to be something in 26, maybe 27, late 28, something like that. But I think that we need more stabilization in before we actually see that. So in fact, let's get to the next thing on here then is realtor.com it's not realtor.com. Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for National Association of Realtors, put out this statement earlier about what's happening with the housing market. I'm going to go over it real quick. So long and short of this, over the past 2 years, we've seen a tough real estate market, but there's hope on the horizon, according to Lawrence Yun, chief economist of the National Association of Realtors. Here's what is coming. Home sales are projected to rise by 9% in 2025 and by 13% in 2026 for existing homes. Now, we're going to talk about in a second the realtor.com article that just came out, kind of saying the same thing. So we'll go over that in a second, and then we'll talk about the Austin housing market. New home sales are expected to jump to 11 and 8% over the same years. Mortgage rates will stabilize, though they'll remain higher than record lows seen over the last few years. Moderate home price growth. Median home prices are forecasted to increase 2% annually, keeping pace with wages. But here's what's really interesting that I saw that he said. All cash buyers are surging now, making 26% of the sales. First-time home buyers are older than ever, with a median age of 38 and many relying on gift loans and inheritance to afford down payments, which I think you and I could talk about that. I feel like a lot of buyers have benefited from that, and not just the last 2 years. Multi-generational homes are at an all-time high, with families combining incomes to buy homes that suit their needs. Single women buyers continue to outpace single men in the market, reflecting shifting demographics. The housing market is also shaped up by life milestones, meaning that people have been locked in to their rates. And so now that they've been locked into the rates with a under 4% interest rate, you're going to see more people having to make life moves. What are your thoughts on this? And you in the comment section as well. What are your thoughts on Lawrence Yun's take on what's going to happen in 25, 26, he's saying that home sales are going to jump 9%, and then we'll get into the realtor.com article.
I think I'm with him, whether it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I don't think that we know overall. I think we're going to have fluctuations during the year. It has to go up. I mean, the sales have to at least keep the same or go up from last year. Last year was abysmal in terms of sales. I think a lot of, homeowners were very discouraged watching the market deteriorate. At least in Austin, they were that way, watching the market deteriorate under their feet and feeling like they're making decisions 2 and 3 months, in the past, basically. So, and most of the clients I worked with weren't willing to face the reality of the time of the market at that time. I don't feel that way anymore. I just feel like that there's not a lot of pressure from buyers, both on residential and commercial front, to make decisions at the moment, because things are probably going to be the same as they were now, as they are in January, as they are probably in February. And they don't feel that pressure to buy, that they feel like they can just kind of come into the market as they please. One of the things that you had mentioned in that article that I actually had heard a couple of weeks ago, and it struck me pretty hard, was that the average age of the first-time homebuyer went to 38 years old. That's up from 33 years old a couple of years ago. Yeah, but that's for the first-time homebuyer. The average age of the homebuyer in the U.S. is actually 56. So if you look at not just first-time homebuyers, but all home sales, the average age is 56. So it does make me also, just as an agent remark to other agents out there, when you're doing your marketing, I'm not saying don't market to, Gen Z for home buyers, but, they're obviously many standard deviations away from the median age of the home buyer. So, my personal marketing strategy, is going to be more towards media channels that reach those age groups this year instead of maybe a lot younger groups. Not that I don't work with younger groups, but the reality is the numbers just aren't in that favor. And by the way, that's up to 56 from 49 in 2023.
Yeah.
So the average age increased by 9 years in 1 year. I think that's a very telling statistic.
Well, let's dive into the reasons why maybe the average age has gone from 33 to 38, or average first-time home buyer has gone from 33 to 38, and why the average buyer has gone from 49 to 56. Look, a majority of the buyers out there over the last 2 years have been cash buyers. That's what it just said in this article. Okay, so who are going to be cash buyers? They're typically not going to be your 33-year-old that's starting a family. In fact, my videographer, who I was just with yesterday, he was like, yeah, all my millennial friends are, he's around 30. It's all my millennial friends are like trying to figure out how to buy houses right now, and they don't know how to do it. They don't even know if they should do it. They're worried about rates. And he's like, working with you, I understand that rates, we can work on rates, we can work on things, we can do different things, and not enough millennial buyers know that. Do you think a lot of it has to do with, people in the media saying, oh, this is a terrible time to buy? So those people who are being pinched right now with the economy, with things, are just saying, hey, look, it's not time to buy, and pushing that out. And then a lot of it has to do with, realistically, that the people that could have afforded over the last 2 years are people that were paying cash.
Yeah, I just think that it's not that it's over. I don't think that that's a trend that, it's a lagging trend that we look at that looks at just and explains kind of what happened in the last couple of years. So it's easy to put inferences together based on that specific data and say, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that tells you, like I said, it'd be sense for me, the ability to manage my marketing plan a little bit better. But it doesn't mean that it's not going to be affordable. I do see, like, for example, prices in Kyle and Buda coming down. Brand new construction you can get now for under $300,000 again. And it's new, Lennar homes and some other decent ones. I'm not saying Lennar is actually like a super quality brand, but there are other budget builders that are offering homes for well under 300,000 right now in Kyle and Buda. And so I'm excited about that prospect because that is more of an approachable price point for somebody that does have a couple of years of work under their belt and actually can, would rather be buying instead of renting. The problem is that rental prices are so cheap right now in Austin because of the overbuild and people waiting. It's really, really hard to look at that and say, I'm willing to buy a home in a 2.5%, 3% tax rate community when I can just rent the same home for about $1,000 to $1,200 less per month. So, I think that's a big challenge. But like I said, I think it'll come back around, and I think younger buyers will be able to look at this once they can figure out where they want to be. Also, it's telling because I don't know that it's very clear where people want to be at the moment. There's been so much volatility in the major markets like Austin, Phoenix, Denver, Tampa, Las Vegas. There's been a lot of volatility in those markets. So the prices have been very, very high. I still think people want to be there, but I don't know that they're ready to commit to that yet. But I also don't think they're ready to commit to mid markets like Charlotte again, or, Raleigh, Durham, or things like that, because I think the cheap housing is great, but if you've experienced the city, I think that you'll essentially be looking for a bit more.
Yeah. Well, too, like let's think of what happened from 2020 to 2024, right? We had, a pandemic where people ended up working from home, right? So you had more people buying or in those 2 years to work from home, then prices escalated, and now they're having to move back. So a lot of those people have been selling to move back or move different markets, and maybe they're not rebuying because you're right, it is cheaper in some of these markets to rent. So that could be a lot of it too, why you're seeing the age creep. And again, it's expensive. So those people that are starting life also people are starting life later. I feel like I started, having kids at 30. I talked to a lot of people who are having kids at like 36, 37. And so, that time that you're starting to have kids is when you start thinking about, oh, I need a house. I need to buy a home. I need a place to live. And so you could just see people later in life finally deciding as well. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of different reasons for it, but that is a concern that the average age is higher. And then more of that age group are still having to actually go and get help, right? They're having to get down payment from their parents. They're having to have them co-sign as a non-owner occupant, things like that. When, you're right, there are in the Austin area, I just did a video I put on Instagram. I think I put it on YouTube as well, talking about the 5 most affordable areas around Austin. And Gerald was the most affordable at $280,000. Buddy, I bought my first house in Austin for $275,000. And that was 2000
in Austin.
In Austin, 2013, I've done nothing but move up. And that's what I was discussing with my videographer yesterday was like, he's like, yeah, I want to buy a house and then move up and then move up and then move up and do what you did, but I don't even know that I can do that. And, we sat down and broke down the ways he could do that. So
how old were you when you bought, was that your first house when you bought the one in Austin?
No, I bought my first house at 29.
And okay. And that, I mean, that's pretty young still, honestly.
Yeah, I've been investing.
It was a lot more expensive than my first house. My first house I bought a year after I graduated from college, and it was $82,500.
Yeah.
Back in 2005.
Not loving my camera, so I'm switching cameras here. I don't like this.
Love your camera, Jeremy. Just kidding. I actually just switched from my old camera to the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 as my webcam.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I like it for content creation, video creation, and also realize it has good webcam. So loving that.
Where's everybody in the comment section, man? I haven't seen anybody in the comment section today. All right.
This week has been dead, bro.
Is it? All right. We're getting showings in all of our listings, which we'll talk about in a second here.
Oh, great.
Which brings us to the next topic that we got, and that's the Realtor.com article about the 2025 housing market. And here's a quick breakdown of what they say. They're saying that home price growth for next year is going to be about 3.7%, which is steady mortgage rates averaging around 6.3%. So that's an average for the year. And inventory is going to rise 11.7%, which I want to talk about the Austin market here momentarily. In a balanced housing market offering improved affordability for buyers and renters amidst policy shifts under the new Trump administration. They're also saying that they expect the year-end rate to be around 6.2. So really what that tells me is that if you are a consumer, don't plan on rates dropping drastically. Get in when you can and then refinance, get a good deal on a property. They're saying home prices predictions for 2025, 3.7, which is lower than 4% growth expected for 2024. Historical comparison prices grew just by 1.1. So that's just sales prices. So that's not sales volume. Obviously, Lawrence Yun said something a little bit different about sales volume. Predicting an increase 11.7 year over year. So inventory trends 11.7 following a 15.2% increase in 2024. Housing supply is expected to reach 4.1 months inventory. And a lot of this had to go through and talk about how, how mortgage rates are going to come down a little bit, but not a lot. They're not expecting them. In fact, there's a new the next rate drop should be this month, which we're going to see another rate drop, but you shouldn't expect to see rates drop drastically from there. In fact, every rate drop has kept them, kind of where they are. In fact, we're at 6.8% right now, 6.88% or 6.85. But they are expecting more inventory. What are your thoughts on the overall Redfin saying that we're only going to be about 3.7% up next year by the end of the year?
I think these type of, obviously I think I'd love to believe that, like I said, I just think that these things are so hard to predict out to that future level. I I understand we have data, but with the volatility of the data for the last couple of years, I just have a hard time understanding how these economists and data analysts can get this accurate of data. But hey, overall, I think that that's a trend that I can get behind. But I still think it's within a margin of error.
Yeah, I mean, we had who did we have on earlier this year that talked about the Austin market, saying that we were going to be plus or minus 2%. And, you know, depending on what data you look at, he's pretty close. We'll see where we end up in the Austin market, but we'll get into that in a second. Michael says, glad home prices are taking a chill pill. Yeah. Look, I think this is where you have to look and decide, 2019 was one of those years. I always talk about 2019 where I had all these buyers were like so concerned about the market. They didn't want to buy. And then 2020 rolled around and prices went berserk, right? And I feel like we're in that 2017, 2018 timeframe where had you bought a bunch of homes in 2017, 2018, you saw a huge, granted, you're not going to see the same level of appreciation that we saw in COVID. I hope to God there's not a COVID 2 or a pandemic 2. But on average, you see homes, the Austin market was going up 8-9% year over year prior to that. Now, I don't think Austin's going to be up 8.9% next year, but I do have a feeling that Austin could end up next year, which we'll talk about right now. But I wanted to finish up with this, is that they are saying that there's going to be more new construction hitting next year, which I find odd because new construction starts are down. So we could see new construction starts to drop off at the end of the year with more people jumping in at the end of the year as rates decrease, causing prices to pump up at the last part of the year. That's what I'm thinking, but what do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of like the first part of this year being very much like it is right now. And I think like anything else, if you look at the growth chart for anything, almost nothing is in engineering, we call it a step function, right? Where it just kind of goes up a little step and stays linear. That would be geometric progression. That's not really how things work. In fact, geometric progressions are very odd because they're not typical data progressions. Most of them happen in terms of growth. They happen in, if you're at a stalled place on a velocity curve, you're stalled out. It's going to grow. It's going to grow a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And as momentum begins to build into a market, that's when you start seeing these larger chunks of growth towards the end of the year. So I personally, think that those are all dependent on the additional legislature that comes through, other factors that come through during the year. And that's the only thing that would affect growth coming back very quickly, very fast. Excuse me. I hope that made sense, but it's based on policy. I think if Trump gets in here and starts making big changes to the policy and people get, some excitement that prices are going to stay down for things, that wages are going to stay up and increase more, housing prices are going to come down. When those factors all begin to stabilize, and then people feel the excitement of being back in this world and years post-pandemic where we can actually finally get back to normal life, I think you'll see a greater growth in that pretty quick, and then a leveling out while it stabilizes, if I'm being honest.
Well, one thing that we could see this year that might help just overall the housing market, but also prevent us from seeing an increase in prices is this year, I think we benefited the U.S. market, not the Austin market, benefited from that lock-in effect. And so I think you're going to see this lock-in effect change where people are going to have to make life changes and life moves. And so you will see more inventory because, look, nobody wants to go from 4% to 7% interest rate. But I think if you see rates hover in the mid sixes, you may see more people just decide, okay, it's not going to get any better anytime soon. I can buy and then refinance in 2 years and get a 2-1 buy down. I can do one of these things. So I think you'll see more people coming in. In fact, The total job openings, and this is, I think, what's really important in this article, is that total job openings are at 7.7 million, unchanged month over month, down from 941. Job opening rates is at 4.6, unchanged month over month. So what I think could happen is that the economy starts getting a little happier and more people pick up some of these open jobs, and we could see the economy kind of turning around a little bit. Or the other thing is we could see a recession. And I think that's where, it just depends on what you're seeing in the economy and your overall, optimism is. Brandon says, fellas, have you guys heard any updates about the Palmer East Village and Velocity off 71 developments?
Yes.
Did these projects die or scale back?
No. East Village is well underway. They just released availability for retail and corporate leases for those spaces about 2 months ago. So they're moving forward. If you drive over there, there's construction going on right now. It's been slower than they expected. And also, there's actually a couple of companies that have signed huge deals to be out in Palmer East Village. One of them is a genetics company out of California that I can't remember the number of spaces, but I thought it was like 2,000 employees or something like that. We're going to be coming to one of the new buildings over there. Of course, the plan for that village is that really wouldn't be ramped up completely until about 2026 through 2028 is where you'll see the bulk of that activity over there. Velocity, recently I heard that they're going to be doing more dirt work over there, but as of right now, I haven't really seen that much going on there. Jeremy, do you know anything about Velocity? You know what I'm talking about over by the airport?
I do know that the Pflugerville East downtown that they've been talking about is going to be starting up pretty soon. So they just broke ground on that. So you'll see that project coming up, and that'll be 2026 for, I think, phase 1 to be done. So I don't know anything about Velocity. I haven't paid attention to it, to be honest with you, but I could. Andy says here that his guess is that the Austin and region will be down 15 to 25% by mid to late 2025. I just don't think that is right. Brad even says, unfortunately, I think 15 to 25% is right. Really, in my neighborhood, there are multiple custom homes where the builder just paused work in 2022 and they still have unfinished 2 years later. Which neighborhood is that? I'm curious. Michael says, I agree with you guys. It takes some time. There will be a lot of people feeling left behind when it comes to home ownership. 2025, 2026 will be their opportunity to catch up if they haven't given in. Curious what your thought is, Kevin, to Andy's remarks and Brad's remarks that down 15 to 25%.
Well, it depends on the neighborhood, right? So some neighborhoods saw increases that they didn't need to see. And I thought that going into 2021, where there's actually a pretty clear, like if you were to talk about the Austin market and neighborhoods in terms of like general areas, 78704, Terrytown, Westlake, Georgetown, Maine, or whatever, you had a pretty good understanding because we had some stability leading up to the years where people said, yeah, I want to be here. I don't necessarily want to be here, but at this price point, I'll consider it, or, this and that. And then all of a sudden people were like, oh, I'm ready to spend $1 million in Easton Park. I was like, bro, like, you understand that literally the year before pandemic, Easton Park, great place to live, but you could buy a brand new home over there for like 400 grand. And even that felt expensive because it was more expensive than other similar homes that were in that area. And it was kind of off the beaten path. So that was way early in that curve. Then all of a sudden they're like $1 million, $1.2 million for a decent custom home in Easton Park. I thought this is not sustainable. And now that same home, I haven't checked recently, but I think last time I checked was like in the 650, 700 range. So yeah, that's a significant decrease. But if you look at other neighborhoods like Southwest Austin, prices have actually, you can see where they hit the bottom, and they started to tick back up again in some of these neighborhoods that were always pretty popular. they saw their 20% decrease in prices, and then people said, okay, we still recognize that's a good neighborhood. Now we want to be really mindful in going into those neighborhoods. Circle C was one of those. High Point, Belterra, a lot of Dripping Springs. I actually want to run the numbers on Dripping Springs, both in all areas. Rental rates for residential, rental rates for commercial, and home sale prices. Those all have either hit their bottom and come back, or they're very close to that stabilizing position where you don't see that huge volatility anymore, and it doesn't feel significantly overpriced. What do you think, Sharon?
I mean, I think 15 to 25% is a wild stretch. I mean, bookmark this video and we'll come back to it at the middle or late next year. I think that's wild. But look, who knows? Yeah, Brandon says, I feel sorry for the Easton folks. You know who doesn't feel sorry for the Easton folks, people? Is me, because I was the one telling people not to buy in Easton Park. I've been the one. In fact, one of my clients reached out to me. He's like, I had a friend who was gonna use you, but you said not to buy in Easton Park, so they bought in Easton Park without you, and they're trying to sell the home right now, and they can't sell it because the reason why they're selling it is because the taxes are so high and there's nothing out there. No, they are getting HEB out there now. That news just broke, but. I've been saying that I think that is one of the most overrated neighborhoods. If you're going to buy out there, you need to make sure you're buying out there for 10 year plus. But let's look at the overall Austin market, Kevin, because I think this is what people came in here for. Looking at 2025 predictions wise, I think there's something that will impact 2025 where we probably won't see huge price gains. But 15 to 25% negative, no. So I'm one of the only people that actually chart this. Now there's a new tool that we have out that I can pull up and show you as well. But I actually chart this. So this is actual inventory for the Austin market. And so we're sitting here in November, right? I don't have the November stats yet. But if we look at inventory this year, we see this is the MSA. And one of the other things people don't realize is when you talk about the MSA and Austin, they're two separate things, but the media and everybody puts them together as one thing. So you're talking about 5 suburbs where you have 5 suburbs that are going to have all different prices. And the reason why some of this stuff does look lower than what it is because you have more homes this year selling under 500K than we did before. So we had a lot of homes selling at a much lower price point this year. That's a majority of the homes, almost looks like 60%. I put a video out the other day. 60% of the homes that have been selling have been under 500, and then it was like 53% under the national average, which was 430,000. But this is what has me concerned for next year as far as why I'm saying we're not going to see huge price gains in Austin, which still might be a good time to invest, right, is the fact that you have so much inventory coming into the end of the year, more so than we had in January of this year. We're at 11,000 units. I bet by the end of the year, we're probably somewhere around 10,000 units. So we go into January 30% higher than we came into January last year, which means that you're going to see a lot more negotiations out of the gate. Plus, what we're also going to see is that everybody that's pulling their homes off the market now are going to put them back on the market next year. So I think 2025 is going to be a good opportunity to get a good deal and to offer and get a good deal in the Austin market. I think one of the comments in here was that you had builders that were slowing down. I think builders are starting to slow down. In fact, the numbers support that the new build starts are slowing down. So they're going to have to get through some of the inventory they have now. What are your overall thoughts on Austin for next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's really hard to even say what's going to happen in the area. I'm actually quite all right, if I'm being honest with you, without looking at Austin data as from a bull market standpoint of like really feeling like we needed to get back to this really great bull market where, everything's great and prices are up. And I just really just crave opportunity and stability for my clients. And if that means that prices come down. And if that means the growth happens back up again, and it's a a boom town, as Elon called it, great. Then that's great. But like I said, I just want the stability more than anything. I miss the day when I could be looking at new listings, like commercial listings or like a house in acreage or something like that. I remember looking at new listings and thinking, wow, that's a cool house. That's a great opportunity. That price looks really good. I want to send this to my client because I think that they'd really, really like it. There are so few of those opportunities now that you're just like, if you happen to find something that looks like a great deal, especially from the commercial or development side, it's so rare. More than often, actually, I have more developers trying to unload their projects than I have people saying, hey, I got a good opportunity for you. Would you have an investor? And I have lots of people with money sitting here waiting to pull the trigger on something, but then a new property will come up and get listed, and it will be 50 to 100% more expensive than it probably needs to be or it should be to make money. And it's really hard. So that standpoint, I kind of hope it gets shaken out a little bit. Not with a huge bump to prices, just with like an evening out of things.
Yeah. And I like the reality is when people hear things, they assume sometimes maybe not the right outcome. One thing I can say is when I hear people talk about foreclosures, they think of 2008 when you could get a deal on a foreclosure from the lender, right? The lender was throwing these out there, and so people were buying these foreclosures. The reality is you can't buy. The only way you can really buy a foreclosure right now is if you have cash and you go to an auction and you buy it at the auction, or that property doesn't sell at auction, and then that builder or that lender then puts it for sale. But there's very few of those that get through that process because a lot of these, teams are going through and buying up this inventory at a much lower price. So like one thing I hear people saying is, foreclosures are going to go up in 2025. So there'll be a lot more foreclosure deals. There are, but not for the average person. And so then when I hear people talk about the market dropping 10 to 15%, right? So let's say the market does drop 10 to 15%. Okay. I'm not saying it's going to do that, but that's opportunity to buy. When there's blood in the water, that's the opportunity to buy because you're buying it waiting for the knife to come back up, right? Or the prices to come back up, right? What's that saying? Yeah. Never catch a falling knife.
Never catch a falling knife, yeah.
If you're buying in 25, 26, Logan Fulmer says this the best, where you make your money is on the purchase, not on the sale of the home. So if there's deals to be had over the next year, the money is being made this year when you purchase the property, right? Because when you go to sell it, that's when you get all of the income from that property. But the reason why you're getting all the income is you bought it at its lowest rate. So I really do think 25 is going to be that kind of like bottom end of our market. And that's why when people are, the market's dropping, I don't want to buy it, it's unstable. That's the best time to buy, right? Nobody wants to buy Bitcoin at the high and sell at the low. They want to buy it at the bottom, but you never know when the bottom is.
Well, if you look at investing curves, I'll go back to the investing curve. And if you visualize this as an investing curve, when you have a huge spike in an investing curve, and then you have an instantaneously sharp fall off, that's the sell, because the sell happens way, from an exponential growth curve. It's the slow grow, and then you get the hockey stick, and then it's an instantaneous drop off, and then it's a very slow fluctuating growth back up until you get the next maybe little hockey stick coming back up. So if you have the stability in our market right now, all I'm saying is like whether you catch a purchase now or next year or the year after, I don't know that makes a huge difference. We're talking about 1 to 2%, 3%, 4% variation in the price over multiple years. That's why I like the stability is we're considering housing as an asset that, we're investing in, we're building equity with. That's the main thing. We're not trading it like a meme coin in terms of, oh, I better catch the bottom really, really fast. And, then a year from now, I can make double my money. That timing is essentially over, I believe. I don't think that I hope and pray to God that we're not going to see a frantic spike in real estate pricing in the rest of my lifetime, like we saw from post-pandemic. So, if you're going to be making a housing decision in the next 2-3 years, if the right opportunity comes around, I would say take advantage of that opportunity now. Don't wait. And I will say maybe giving that advice a year ago may have been a little, hasty, because I do think you did feel about a year ago that this probably wasn't over yet. That I at least personally did. I felt like, hey man, these prices still feel a little high relative to some neighborhoods, but you don't know what is going to happen. So, if you need to make a housing decision, go ahead and make a housing decision. And a lot of my clients that did, and very few did. Last year was one of the toughest years I had as a real estate agent and broker, because I was advising a lot of my clients, if you don't need to buy, then don't. And the problem is the sales weren't happening in the pace that they really, really needed to be. So, but I do feel differently now in saying that it is a decent time. Anytime in the last couple of months, for sure, is a really decent time to be buying.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there. I mean, this year was definitely an interesting year because I was telling a lot of sellers to wait. I was telling a lot of clients, if it's not the time to sell, don't sell. Wait it out a couple more years. I mean, if you don't have to sell, don't sell. I like Brandon's comment here. It says ATX born and raised. If you're buying in the neighborhood that have always been desirable, I think there'll be a great appreciation in the long run. I think that's right. I mean, everybody's moving to the periphery right now because it's cheaper, but prices in Austin itself aren't necessarily dropping drastically. I mean, they're down, I think, 1.7% year over year in the city of Austin, where I was showing you the chart earlier. The MSA was not even down. In fact, I showed the MSA right at last year's level. So it was almost even. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen next year? I know I'm personally looking for investments. I'm in the middle of buying an investment right now. So I don't know. I think the other thing too is there's a lot more multifamily coming on the market, which has impacted rental rates. So for these investors that were buying in Austin, they're not buying as much. So for a consumer, you're not having to deal with competing against investors trying to get deals on properties as well. So I think what was it, like 28% of the people buying in like 21 and 22 were investors. So you have a third of the market gone. So you have a third of the competition gone, and you can get pretty decent prices. Probably not the greatest prices. I hate this. Yeah. I mean, I hate the saying "marry the home, date the rate." But if they are projecting rates to drop slowly over the next year, get a buy down. I don't know. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I do think it comes down to like a personal preference, honestly, and whether or not you think that that's going to meet your goals. If you're looking at a market like Austin, and you think, hey, I'm going to be here for 3 to 5 years. I think it's a coin toss on whether you just rent for 3 to 5 years or whether you buy for 3 to 5 years. It just really is your personal preference. Some people don't like renting at any cost.
Let's not forget, the reason why Austin's prices boomed so quickly is we did not have the infrastructure for that much growth in that short of time frame. Austin has been building out like crazy over the last year. So of course your prices aren't going to take off like they were because we had so many people coming in, but Austin is still building for the future. I think you'll see a boomerang effect if people end up coming back here because Austin is building for the future. I mean, there's so many different articles I read about the developments, about the new things. Look, Pflugerville East is building. So more people are going to go to Pflugerville. More people are going to continue to move around the periphery of Austin, but the neighborhoods that if you're looking to invest in that are still going to be the good neighborhoods are the ones closer into Austin. You said this 2 years ago, closer into Austin that that are the more desirable neighborhoods, just like Brandon said. What does he say here? Higsy, the east is expanding more than the west. Oh, sorry, he's responding to somebody. Okay. The west is somewhat landlocked by hills, but the west has historically been the better place to live. Thank you for you saying that instead of us saying that as realtors, because we get slapped for different things for saying that. But yeah, I agree with the statement there. I mean, I think really the I-30, the I-130 corridor is where all of the major companies are coming in. So people are going to be working there are going to have to, probably not the executives, right? The executives are going to still move to West Austin, while the employees are going to move to Del Valle, East Austin, Manor. They're going to move to places that are more affordable so they can go work at those companies.
Well, that whole growth belt too, which is everywhere from, basically, if you take Leander, Liberty Hill, and draw like a semicircle around Austin, all the way through Round Rock and Pflugerville, all the way down to Del Valle, Buda, and Kyle, that all of that has traditionally been the growth belt. And so, on the east side of town, which anybody that's listened to us will know that the Balcones fault line runs through the center of Austin. So on the west side of town, you typically see a lot of hilly, rocky, hill country type terrain. And then east of that, it falls off and you get into more of the lowlands, flat. In some cases like Del Valle, a lot more floodplains. So it is easier to bring infrastructure into those lowland, flat areas than it is to try to go into the west. Plus, most of the west has already been developed and restricted based on environmental concerns as well. You got the Edwards Aquifer, you got protected species. So there's a lot of factors there that, which for me, knowing that previously, Jeremy's right. My thoughts are the closest that you can get to the center of Austin as possible and still meet the needs and be in your budget. That I think is what works best for you. If you can buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, new construction for $500,000, and you could buy it in 78704, why wouldn't you buy it there versus buying it in, Manor? So, but the reality is that just doesn't. And this is the way that it goes, is we had a really clear understanding of our market because it settled in for years that you just knew, listen, my budget's $600,000. I'm going to start building for it. I like this area. Like, let's say I like the Manchac and Lamar area of 78704. I like that area. I know that I can get a 3-bed, 2-bath townhouse for about $650,000. Then you're going to say, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to save, and then I'm going to go buy this thing. So that was very clear before, and whereas now it hasn't been as clear. So I don't know. I think it makes a big factor, like you said, just to say, like, where do I want to be long term? Where do I feel the most comfortable? Where does my budget allow me to? And as close as you can be in town to give you that ability, then that's great. I will say too, though, it comes down to a value standpoint, because if it was easy for them to build your house and you were able to get a great deal on it, there's still. Just drive the 130 loop around Austin, bro. You feel like you're in the middle of West Texas. Like, yeah. You don't even see buildings out there. And you say to yourself, listen, we have got a far, far way to go before the density here is one that is unapproachable, which means that your housing prices probably aren't going to substantially go up if you bought in one of these residential suburbs. Your best chance of seeing a higher price increase in the real estate that you purchase will now be in the neighborhoods that have less ability to build the same type of house that you have. 7745 is going to see a rebound in that. 0439, things of that nature, depending on your price point.
One of the question here is an interesting question. What kind of points do you need to make to negotiate leverage with builders? I'd say number one, you definitely. I've had so many people reach out to me this year to sell their properties that they went directly to the builder and purchased without using a realtor, and now they're in big trouble trying to sell these properties because they bought directly from the builder. I would hire an agent who understands what you're wanting to do, and how to negotiate with that builder and to analyze that deal. The biggest problem I see people do is they get they get emotionally attached to a property. They go to the builder. The builder does not represent them. The builder represents the builder. They get you excited about it. You buy it instead of somebody that can be an objective person and go, hey, this doesn't make sense. Why are you buying this? And that's our biggest job, is to make sure you don't get in trouble. That has been our biggest job during the pandemic. It's the biggest job still now today. All right, guys, I got to run. I got a team meeting right now at 2:00. We will be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central. Kevin, have a great day.
Yep. Thanks, Jeremy. Talk to you soon. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.